Hello folks, hope you're all keeping safe and well. So a little change of pace for the next couple of videos. The observant amongst you will have noticed I'm holding a stick, so we're going to do some single stick work or single weapon work for the first video and some double weapon work for the second video. If you haven't got a stick, don't worry, we're going to cover some other options. If you're going to be working this indoors, whatever weapon you're using, just be mindful of how low your ceilings may be so you don't get yourself in trouble. So to start with the single weapon, as I did before with the empty hand stuff, I'm going to try and keep the videos relatively short but give you plenty of options in there, so rather than overload you with information, just give you options you can work through and you can create your own information from that. So there are two main ways to work with the stick. So one is called the zone hit, and that tends to be worked in a 5-hit sequence. So it's up here for your initial chamber, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the thrust. So the reason it's a zone hit is you hit to your target and you stop somewhere within the range of that target rather than sweeping through. Okay, so the standard way to do it: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those 3 and 4 shots can be anything from horizontal to something coming upwards. Okay, once you've got the coordination, try and make sure you don't hit the wall. Try and make sure you work both hands. That's going to be really useful when you come to the double weapon stuff. Once you've got the coordination, don't just blindly run it. So that training part that lives in your head that you should all have by now, try and think about where you're hitting. Are you hitting to a target on the body, as in are you hitting head, are you hitting shoulder, are you hitting elbow, are you hitting to their weapon, are you hitting to their weapon hand? So have something clear in your mind that you're working to, and again, that's where your variation comes in. So you can pick and choose different targets for each of those shots. You can then change the sequence of those 5 shots. Okay, so that's the 5 zoned hits. If you haven't got a stick, fear not, we can improvise. So for fans of the first Jason Bourne film, anything that will impact or penetrate into human flesh will do the job, and you can run exactly the same sequence. So you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for example. So be a little bit creative with that. In all seriousness, one of the things I like about the Jason Bourne films is the improvised weapon stuff. So pretty much anything that's harder than a human body can be used as a weapon. So play around with the idea, play around with the lines a little, definitely play around with the targets, and see what you can come up with that breaks the bonds of those first 5 shots in that sequence. So the other way to work single weapon, and certainly if we're talking about stick, it's the more common thing you'll see in systems like a Screamer and Kali, is to hit through. And those systems also tend to have a 12 strike system. There's quite a few variations on it. I haven't done them for a while, so you may well see me shift through a couple of those variations as we work through this. So your number 1 shot is the same as it was for the 5 strike sequence, but you hit through. You pull it down to the opposite hip. So that's your number 1, 2, 3 are your horizontal shots, 4, 5, 6, and then you have 3 stabs, 7, 8, 9. Then you have things called arbonicos, 10, 11, and then right over the head and bring it all the way down the middle to come back up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So again, the sequence isn't really important. It's what you're doing in your head whilst you're running that sequence. If you can nail the sequence or a version of it, it doesn't matter if it's your own one, that's great. So you've got something to run to. As ever, as soon as you can run that sequence, break it a little. So one of the things that's really easy to do with single weapon is have what we call a check hand in between. So you do your first hit and check. So that might be recontrolling the arm with the weapon hand you just hit. That might be you hit them in the head and you check the shoulder. So you pin them a little before you come back. Your 2, check, 3, check, 4, check, etc. So you can have a check hand in between every time. You could just run odds or evens. That's a nice way to mix it up and surprisingly tricky. So you can do 1, bring it back, 3, bring it back, 5, bring it back. As with the stuff we've done previously, that's open to your interpretation, however you want to run it. As long as you're moving that weapon and you have a purposeful method to move it and you know what target you're going for, then you can play with it as you see fit. The advantage of the cuts going through, or the hits going through rather, is you can turn them into cuts. So you can use a much shorter weapon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 and have much the same effect. If you've got a training knife, great. If you haven't, you can just grab a pencil again or something. If you're going to grab a knife from the kitchen, which I understand it's tempting to do, please don't grab something too sharp. I've heard numerous horror stories of people cutting themselves when solo knife training with a live blade. It is surprisingly easy to do, so don't be tempted to do that. Okay. Again, with a knife, you can have the check hand in there. You can change the way you work stuff. Once you've got any of those working, you can then mess around with the feet. And I'm not really going to tell you any more than that other than mess around with the feet. So I've done all this from one fairly static position. I haven't really moved my feet. I've just done body turns. You can turn on each cut. You can step. You can come back. You can do what we call a pass. So you can draw everything in. Again, that's kind of open to interpretation because what we're really looking at here is just training your body to move with a weapon. We're not looking at prescribed sequences and certainly not prescribed defense and counter stuff. So play around with it until you're just happier moving with a weapon. Okay, so stay safe with it, have fun.